and welcome to another episode of The Buzz presented by CanMar Events. The Buzz will shine a light on the movers, shakers, and innovators of the cannabis and psychedelics industry. My name is Kelsey Cannabis, and I will be your host for today's show. Our guest today is Mr. Joel Dumaresq, who is the CEO of Christina Lake Cannabis Corporation, a leading Canadian outdoor cannabis cultivator and processor located in British Columbia, Canada. Mr. Dumaresq has an extensive background in finance and investment banking, including his current tenure as managing director of Pashleth Merchant Capital since 2004, and previously with the RBC Dominion Securities for over 15 years. He also has significant experience in the natural resources sector, having served as president of Greenwater Forest Products for over 9 years. I am joined now today with Mr. Joel Dumaresq on The Buzz presented by CanMar Events. Joel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Kelsey, it's a pleasure to be with you and your audience.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm, of course, very excited to speak with you today. So let's jump into it, as I'm sure a CEO is quite busy during the day. So I wanted to know, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers want to know as well, what sparked your passion for wanting to enter the Canadian cannabis industry?
That's an interesting question. Let me start by saying I really had no passion for the cannabis industry. I was never a cannabis user. Just didn't kind of intrigue me. I really came at it more from a financial perspective. And the way that happened was I was introduced to the three founders of the company who were looking for capital at the time. This goes back, Kelsey, probably three and a half years ago. And they were trying to build out their dream, which is what Christina Lake Cannabis has become up in Christina Lake. And what really compelled me was the passion that they had, their knowledge, their passion, their awareness, their vision around the operation and what they saw as the potential to have a large outdoor grow operation up in the Christina Lake area, and also an extraction company, extraction facility. So it was really their passion and their enthusiasm that I bought into, and then I ended up accidenting into being the CEO. But it's been a great experience for me, and I'm really enjoying the progress that we're making.
That's amazing, and we're super glad to have you. I know in those early stages with build outs and needing seed funding, it can be quite difficult and the amount to raise can be excessive. So we're always grateful when we have anybody in the financial industry who can lend their advice into our new budding industry, pun intended. So that's really great to hear that we have investors with your knowledge and that you're now in the cannabis industry. It is a dividend that pays on dividends. So as you're mentioning, and for those listening, Christina Lake Cannabis specifically is a premier producer of high quality, low cost, sun grown cannabis flower, oil cannabinoids, and hemp based extracts and derivatives, serving the domestic and the international markets. So what are the competitive advantages with, say, your outdoor production compared to indoor production that we can see?
Well, firstly, that was one of the best descriptions of what we are I've heard. So well done, Kelsey. In terms of the product, our product is natural, obviously being outdoors. We're sun-grown, which differentiates us from the indoor guys and the greenhouse guys. There's no pesticides, there's no insecticides. And what that enables us to have is a high potency. With outdoor strains, you end up with higher potent product, higher THC content. Also very, very high quality product as a result. And it also enables us to have tremendous control over our genetics. Those three founders I mentioned have been operating in, we'll call it the legacy industry, for 25 or 30 years. And they've developed over 160 strains that now make up the genetics of our company. So that's a key factor. And in terms of our positioning and where we're located, we're up in Christina Lake, and that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, Christina Lake, as many people may appreciate, is the warmest climate in all of Canada, the warmest, driest climate in all of Canada. In fact, the lake itself is the hottest lake in Canada. So that's important in terms of having a good long growing season through the summer for growing cannabis. The next thing is that it has a very, very high quality soil. It's right along the banks of the Kettle River. The Kettle River for centuries, well, more than centuries, thousands and thousands of years, has been flooding, and so you get a very rich glacial sand that makes up the soil, which is ideal for growing cannabis. And then the third factor, and maybe the biggest factor in terms of our crop last year, is that you get heavy winds through the valley. The valley the wind comes down through the valley and pinches right around the area where we're located, our facility is located. And what that does is it taxes the stalks of the plant. So the plant has to develop a very strong root structure in order to stay standing. And it also means that the plant ends up with a very strong trunk or core. And that then allows you to carry a lot more flower on the plant. So our plants last year were almost as wide as they were tall. Some of the plants were 8 to 10 feet tall, and they were almost as wide as they were tall. So it gave us a tremendous yield. So that's really, really important in terms of our location. And then probably the most important factor is that the outdoor environment, by growing outdoors, allows us to have a really low cost of production. So I find it hard to believe that anybody could potentially have a lower cost of growing than we have, and our cost is a fraction of what it costs to grow indoors and in greenhouses. So that's a tremendous advantage for us as a company.
That's really remarkable. There are so many benefits, as you're indicating, about outdoor production and being able to grow in an environment that is designed to flourish when it comes to this cannabis flower. You really want to utilize that if you're able to. And again, having these environmental factors that take down on your overhead costs are huge, because the environment is what's best. It's Mother Nature, and those benefits do come that you can't replicate in an indoor environment. Like you're saying, you can't get in this wind strength that is getting a strong trunk that doesn't need trellising to hold up all the yields, and it can naturally hold those yields plus some, in addition to the soil and the microclimates that offers. It's something, again, like you're saying, that's not replicated. I've seen, for those who haven't seen, on the website, Christina Lake Cannabis, absolutely stunning facility, and absolutely huge. It's beautiful. I've seen the colas, I've seen the flower, and they look remarkable. They truly do. With that, actually, Joel, you've been quoted as saying, quote, harnessing the natural sunlight and that valley breeze not only saves us lighting and the ventilation costs you were discussing, but it also does help to grow healthier and more robust plants. So we were having this conversation just now about the microclimate, the environment, and with outdoor cultivation in the industry, we discuss this often. And as you know, it's the environment's terroir, which, as a friendly reminder for those listening, the terroir is the characteristic taste and flavor that's imparted to the flower by the environment in which it is produced. So what value, Joel, does the British Columbia terroir add to the outdoor grown facility? You mentioned a bit of the wind, of course, this very important soil factor. Is there anything else you would like to add on about that BC terroir?
Yeah, no, good question, Kelsey. We made a conscious decision when we were laying out the facility. We made a conscious decision that we would plant into pots. So every one of the plants, almost 30,000 plants that we have out there going in our field, literally as we're speaking, over the next week to 2 weeks, we'll be putting the 2021 crop into the pots. Every individual plant goes into a pot, and what that does is it gives us a massive advantage in terms of controlling the health and the nutrition of each individual plant, so that we can actually provide the ideal nutrient content and tailor the food needs of each individual plant that's in our field. So that's kind of a crucial element that we have. What we also find is a lot of the outdoor competitors, they slam the plants into the ground, and I'm somewhat envious of that because, of course, that's very inexpensive. It's a lot easier in terms of how you tend the plants and so on. But the fact of the matter is that they just can't compete in terms of the consistency of their product, quality of their product, and the yield in terms of THC content. If you were to have seen the finished product that we're producing, and you can go to our website, as you pointed out, and see some of the shots or photographs of some of our oil and our distillate. It's just a beautiful yellow, light yellow honey color, which is indicative of the quality of the plant and the care that goes into how we grow and control the development of the plant.
That's remarkable. It really does come down to what you said, tailoring to what the plant needs. As we know, it's a female plant and she needs to be cared for and tended to in a certain way. And the better you do that, the better your output is going to be. So, quality in, quality out. So there are a lot of factors with outdoor grown flower that we can accentuate on it and just really enjoy and create a certain type of cultivar that you cannot have in these indoor grown facilities. So with that specifically, what types of strains, or better term being cultivars, or even proprietary genetics does Christina Lake Cannabis focus on with respect to outdoor cultivation? You mentioned you had quite a few, so tell us a little bit more about those cultivars.
Yeah, about 160 different strains that have been developed and in our proprietary genetics. We have a seed bank that's close to 600,000 seeds that also was developed, and that we were able to move into the company. When you get your license, there's an amnesty where you can move genetics from outside the legal market into the legal market. And so we took advantage of that. So we have a tremendous seed and genetic value to our company. But, in terms of the cultivars, what we're focused upon and what we've really strived to do is develop genetics and strains that are, exceptionally robust and really well suited to the outdoor environment. So very different from what you would have in an indoor environment. So that's crucial because nobody's ever done that on a large scale for outdoors. And you just couldn't, in the legacy market, you couldn't do that because, of course, you couldn't grow on the scale that we were growing on because, of course, the authorities and the helicopters and whatever above would notice something as large as our footprint. So that's been a real experiment that we've been undertaking. And what we've really tried to focus on in the cultivars is we wanted high terpene, high potency strains. And what we found from our crop in 2020 was that some of our strains were 25% or better in terms of THC content. So exceptional when you compare it to an indoor or a greenhouse environment. And of course, once you take the product through extraction from a molecular standpoint, it's all the same. So it really does give us a huge competitive advantage over the indoor operators. And you just don't see, those kind of numbers, consistently in the indoor environment. And that's, really why, we're somewhat forcing people to look differently about how and where they source their oil and distillate just by virtue of our quality of our product as well as the obvious cost advantage that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. I think as the consumers become more educated, they'll understand that quality and that value that it brings, say, if they're purchasing one product over another. We've seen a lot of mass-produced flower, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's been quality. And there is that demand for quality because it may be a new industry, but a lot of us, like you're saying, have been around in the legacy market. So this isn't our first rodeo, so to speak. And the fact that you're able to take advantage of that one-time transfer, bring in all your different genetics, have this seed bank, and then be able to work on the genetics of those seeds so that they can be grown in a repeatable manner. They can be pest resistant and whatever that may be needed for design for your outdoor environment. So being able to be aware of that and capitalize on that really will affect the quality, which is why we see such a great quality coming out of Christina Lake Cannabis. So as you're mentioning, Joel, from full spectrum oils to hemp-based extracts, Christina Lake Cannabis is also, as you're mentioning, uniquely equipped to produce premium quality extracts from low-cost outdoor cultivated cannabis. So just as an overview, tell us about the extraction technologies or methods that you utilize at your facility.
Yeah, well, as you pointed out at the outset, Kelsey, the facility that we built is world class, and invite again anyone that's interested to go have a look at our website, www.christinalakecannabis.com, and you'll see some terrific pictures of what we're doing and how we produce the product and what the product looks like, and also the facility itself. We made a decision at the outset that we wanted to use CO2-based extraction technology versus the solvent-based systems. And that's just a little bit of a prejudice towards maintaining the highest quality of the product possible. So it was partly that. The other thing that was compelling about CO2 is that it allowed us to build a facility to EU GMP standards, so that, and I think you also mentioned in your intro that selling internationally is one of our priorities. So it allowed us to build a facility so that we can sell internationally by virtue of having CO2 as compared to having ethanol, for example, based extraction. So that was really important. And the other thing, that right in our own backyard, down in Kelowna, about a 2-hour drive from Christina Lake, is one of the world leaders, Vitalis, in CO2 technology. And so what we did is we purchased their state-of-the-art R200 machine, and that's a variable pressure machine. And variable pressure is important because it allows us to temper the pressure at which we're pushing the plant matter biomass through the extractor, such that we don't damage the molecular quality of the product. We get that really high quality THC at the end of the process, which is important to us. That's evident when you look at our crude oil, when you look at our winterized oil, and when you look at our distillate in terms of the final product. And it also allows us to ensure that we keep the potency very high. In this day and age, you really want to be 90% THC in your distillate, and we're consistently producing product like that. So that was an important part of it. So really we built our extraction around CO2 and the Vitalis system.
Absolutely. I've seen that system online by Vitalis, and it is quite remarkable. It is quite technical, but also with that comes a quality, like you're stating and saying, which is really important for the consumers, whether it's recreational or medical. That quality is important because we're consuming something in our bodies. And of course, the more of a consumer, of a connoisseur you are, you're right. We want to have a higher potency or a higher quality product, whether that's in THC potency, but not necessarily. It may be other cannabinoids, or it may be terpene profiles. It's not just high THC is what we want anymore, but should you need to produce those products, you absolutely are and have been. As you're mentioning, there are different methods of extraction, whether it's solvent or solventless. And for those listening, I just think they each have their different purpose, their different lanes. Some days you like to have flower. Some days you might like to have a dab or use your vape pen to an oil type of an extract. So the CO2 utilizes a type of method, and it produces a type of quality product. So they each have their own. I like to say sometimes you want a beer night, sometimes you want a whiskey night, but CO2 generally, right, is a non-invasive extraction method for cannabis using CO2, and it does tend to allow these greater terpene yields, which we're really excited to see more of in the industry. So tell us why these greater terpene yields are important in terms of product quality. Why is that important to Christina Lake?
Yeah, no, you think you did a better job in asking the question, answering the question than I can, but very, very well done. I'm impressed with your knowledge. In terms of, we made a decision, obviously, to go solventless. And, there are advantages to using a, solvent-based system, no doubt about it. And that largely is speed. And so CO2 is slower. There's no question about it. It's slightly more expensive. But what we have come upon through our relationship with Vitalis has been working for a number of years on ways to basically accelerate the winterization process using what they call a co-solvent system. And we became the first commercial customer of that system. We identified it early on, and through our strong relationship with Vitalis, we jumped on the opportunity when we saw it. And we installed their co-solvent system back in February, March. We basically tested it with Vitalis. They have had people on site for a number of months working very closely with us. And what that does is it allows us to get the same speed that you would get in a ethanol-based system, but without the introduction of more than just a very, very trace amount of ethanol into the system. So now we're getting not only the benefits of CO2 and avoiding solvent in large quantities, but we're also getting the speed of the co-solvent system and being able to run the product through at a quarter of the speed that we were initially running when we set up our operation. That's really key. When you're producing as much product as we do over the course of the year, literally tens and tens of thousands of kilos of biomass, and you've got to put it through your extractor, you really need to have a system that processes it through the extractor relatively quickly. So this has done that for us. It's, again, lowered our cost even more, and we're really, really pleased with the decision we made to get into that technology.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to see CO2 as an extraction methods often when we're looking at the technologies that were used in the methods to produce a product. So although it is more expensive for the LP to put in this type of equipment, it really does produce a consumer requested product, and being able to get those amount of yields through an extractor and through a closed loop system is important, because you are putting out, literally, like you said, tens of thousands of kilos of flower. So that really is important. And of course, those terpene yields, we want to see those terpenes, because for those that are looking at labeling, it's a great indicator of quality without having to open that product and utilize it yourself, be able to smell it or put the money into it. If you can see these increased terpene yields, you know that you have to have quality to get those amounts in the first place. So as a refresher for those listening, and as you mentioned earlier, Joel, winterization of oil, it's a process that uses a solvent and cold temperatures to not get too technical, but to separate these lipids and other desired oil compounds from waxes. And it's basically an oil refinement technique. So this process, as you know, involves distilling the extract in a smaller portion of ethanol, which is not a negative for us to be using. It is extracted later on in the process, but then placing that mixture in an extremely cold temperatures, and that's necessary to create this higher purity of cannabinoids or higher quality product, which is exactly what you're saying is the goal of Christina Lake Cannabis. So why is that extra step in this extraction process important to your company and its customers? Why invest in this process for us?
Yeah, again, another good question. What we learned last year, being our first crop and first year in which we operated the extraction facility, what we learned is that our product, our biomass, is very high in lipids and waxes, fast lipids and waxes. And so it made the winterization process all that more important and critical to us in order to get to those high THC yields that I mentioned. And so we've put a lot of work, a lot of effort into doing that. It took us a little while to kind of crack the nut here, but we've done that, and we've demonstrated that by the product that we're producing. But what we're finding is happening in the market is that the market is naturally maturing, and that there's a growing appreciation for things like terpene count. At first, it was all just about THC, just what's the THC content of your distillate. Now what people are paying attention to in your winterized oil, your distillate, and so on is what's the terpene complexity of it, and they're looking for product that has has a good terpene blend within it. So we're really starting to pay additional attention to that and looking at what we can do to continue to improve upon that in our product. And what we're finding and what our customers are telling us is that the terpene content of our product is really, really strong. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. We love high terpenes. We love saving the terpenes, as I would say. That is the reason we grow the whole time, is to have these trichomes that contain the goodies, which is the cannabinoids, the terpenes, etc. And we don't want to not enjoy the reason we've harvested the whole time. So with that being said, and as we wrap up, I can imagine that running a 32-acre property, which includes over 950,000 square feet of outdoor grow space, offices, propagation and drying rooms, research facilities, and even a facility that's dedicated to processing and extraction, that requires, of course, many different types of workers as an employee. So what would you say, Joel, to those wanting to start working in the cannabis industry? You have that expert from being in a C-suite or a CEO position to look at hiring, whether directly or if that's hiring indirectly through a hiring agency such as CanMar Recruitment, who's brought us here today, that works with a variety of clients from across Canada, from startups to established licensed producers. What would you say for those who may have no experience, have some? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a very timely question. I mean, obviously, Kelsey, it's been a bumpy start in the cannabis industry in Canada over the past 2 or 3 years. And what I would say to people looking at the industry is I'd say, be patient, because it is coming together. There were some challenges. Obviously, the competition from the black market world made it difficult, because here you've got all these additional costs of being a regulated business, a legal producer, and you're competing with an industry side by side where they don't have those costs. But the good news is that when you have a company like Christina Lake, our cost structure is so low that even the black market can't compete with us. And that's because they can't grow on the scale that we can grow on. And so that's a big advantage for us in the sense that we can outprice or underprice the black market world. The other side of the industry that has been a bit of a challenge has been distribution, has been the number of retail stores that were licensed in Canada. Health Canada was somewhat slow on the uptick in initially licensing stores. They licensed growers, so all of a sudden you have this massive amount of growing, but you didn't have the access for consumers, and that's taken some time to sort. But Health Canada, to their credit, did appreciate that, and they've accelerated the store opening. So in Ontario, for example, we've seen a massive number of store openings over the last couple of years. Now, it's been somewhat mitigated in the near term by what's been happening with COVID and some shutdowns of COVID. But the point is the infrastructure is there now for us to sell, and that's really, very important. So those should be points, I think, of optimism for anybody looking at getting into the industry. And it still is very early. It still is very optimal in terms of timing. There's the opportunity to build a career, to learn, to evolve as the industry evolves. And companies like ours are going to need people, and we have turned to CanMar in the past. CanMar has been absolutely essential to us in terms of helping us to staff up. We have several employees, and some of our most key people, best positioned, best paid people in our company have come through CanMar, and we've been extremely happy with the relationship with CanMar. So, I would encourage people that are looking at the industry, that take a close look at it. Don't be discouraged by some of the negative views that are out there in terms of some of the challenges we've had, because we are overcoming those challenges. And companies like ours, a year ago we had 7 employees or 8 employees. Now we have over 50, somewhere between 50 and 60. And with our expansion, I wouldn't be surprised to see us, closer to 100 employees 1 to 2 years down the line. So a lot of us are growing very, very quickly, and I think offer tremendous potential for people wanting to enter the industry.
Absolutely, Joel, you make some excellent points. Health Canada, they've been remarkable. I've heard it's better to add on the regulations up front to take them off later compared to adding them on after the fact. So we're getting a few years in the industry now where things aren't as stringent, but exactly what you're saying, we are setting the standard with our industry, and it's very evolving. It's very exciting. There are people from all walks of life, and it's not stereotypical people, as you can see here yourself from the finance industry. Actually, myself, before my brain injury, I was in the finance industry as well. But point being is, you're not just a stereotypical young stoner without a job and unproductive. There are a lot of business professionals, and a lot of us utilize cannabis to be more, have a better quality of life and be able to function in a better quality at work or outside of work. So a lot of people looking at this right now can realize that you don't have to be a certain make or model to be in this industry. We are happy to have you, and especially like you're saying, with the expansion of companies such as Christina Lake Cannabis. If you're expanding, that means we need more workers, and we're happy to have those workers, whether they're in the extraction avenue, whether they're in the growing avenue, whether they're on the research and development side. There is a need for those individuals, and we're so glad to have them in the industry, including individuals such as yourself as the CEO of Christina Lake Cannabis. So lastly, Joel, what overall advice would you offer to those who are watching and listening today?
Boy, as I say, I think there's tremendous potential in the industry. We're at, if you can think of it as a baseball game, we're in the second inning of the game. Yeah. Maybe not the second inning, might be the first inning. There's a long ways to go here, and this business will grow. It's already growing very, very quickly, and it'll continue to grow very, very quickly. There's some really exciting things, I think, that are going to be happening in the downstream side of the business over the next 2 to 3 years, with new products that are coming to market and opportunities there. So whether you're interested in the upstream element, like where we're positioned in terms of growing and extracting, we've got some tremendous talent that's already working for our company, and we're always looking for good people. So whether you're interested in that element or whether you're interested in the downstream element of the business, I would suggest take a look at the cannabis industry. I think you'll find it's an exciting place to work where you're not limited. You're not limited by any types of restrictions that you'd see in a normal mature industry. And I think you can grow your position, your role within the company that you join very, very quickly. So I'd say do take a look at the industry to anybody that's interested.
That's great advice, Joel. We are an industry, but we're also very much a community. And it's not all about the dollar at the end of the day. And with that comes that community feeling of people wanting to help each other, wanting to see each other exceed, and wanting to do overall just well in whatever position one is in. And that's really something that you don't often see in the industries that are out there. And it is something that's really special about the cannabis industry. So as we're finishing up, I've been so grateful to have your time today. Joel, where can people find you, Christina Lake Cannabis? I know you mentioned the website earlier, but as a refresher, if they want to learn more, where can they go?
Yeah, it's www.christinalakecannabis.com. There's links to articles that have been written on the company. There's an information email if somebody's interested in anything from employment through to investment or just general knowledge. We often invite people to come by and visit the facility. We're not doing that right now because of COVID, but hopefully that changes. And seeing the facility firsthand is really, I think, an eye opener to see the quality of what's been built there, the scale of it, and the sophistication of it. I think is really interesting. So thank you so much, Kelsey, to you and your listeners. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate the questions and the time today, and look forward to perhaps circling back at some point in time and having a follow-up discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Joel Dumaresq, for joining us and The Buzz presented by CanMar Events. It's been lovely speaking with you. You did get, for those listening, an open invite for a facility tour. If you've never been to the facility, it is quite an experience. It is a beautiful place. Check out that website. Look at those photos. They are absolutely amazing imagery, and you can see the quality that is coming out of Christina Lake Cannabis. So thank you so much, and everyone have a fabulous day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that's a wrap for another episode of The Buzz presented by CanMar Events with myself, Kelsey Cannabis, as your host. We want to thank you for stopping by and spending time with us. Remember to check us out on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And check out CanMar Hub Community Space on LinkedIn for educators, enthusiasts, and professionals alike. Until next time, CanMar is bringing you endless possibilities.